Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Knit.Purl.Repeat channel here on YouTube. My name is Jess and I'm coming to you from Southwest Florida. This week is a special episode, so if you're new here, this is not my usual format for the episodes. So I'm not going to talk about finished objects, works in progress, any of that kind of thing. What I wanted to talk to you about this week were those one-skein wonders that we call shawls or shawlettes. So I'm going to talk about that specifically. I've been thinking about them a lot over the past several months to a year, and that's what I want to focus on. So if you're interested, then stick around. So what do I mean? I'm talking about patterns that have a shawl shape to them. So that means that they are either triangular shaped, whether that's symmetrical or not, or they might have a crescent or boomerang shape to them. So I will not be talking about things that are listed as scarves. So not really long and skinny, nothing like the Sophie scarf or all the patterns like the Sophie scarf that came out before the Sophie scarf. I'm not going to talk about those because those aren't my style. I don't care to wear them. So I'm going to stick with shawls or small sized shawls, you could call shawlettes. So that means any pattern that will use roughly 400 yards or 400 meters, give or take, of fingering weight or 4-ply yarn. And of course, you might need a little less. You could use a little more if you had a contrast color, but they have to basically fit into that criteria. So I'm going to talk about those. I will have some knit patterns and some crochet versions as well that I'll talk about. This is not going to be an exhaustive list. One, you would fall asleep. Two, there's just not enough time. So I'm going to talk about ones that I have made myself, those I plan to make, and others that have caught my eye. Of course, if you have any patterns that you would like to mention that you really enjoy or find interesting, please pop them into the comment box and share them with us all. That would be great. So what I've realized over this past year especially is that it is these small sized shawls that I go to over and over again. They are small, they fit into your bag, they're perfect for cold grocery store aisles, air conditioning. Anytime you need that little bit of extra warmth around your neck or shoulders. They also make great gifts. They're quick, they're easy, they use that special skein of yarn, or you just have maybe slightly less than one skein. There might be a pattern to use. Having a little pile of these for quick gifts, I found has been really useful. So while I'm not considering myself a gift knitter, I have been gifting most of the little shawls that I have made over the past couple of years. Not intentionally, but they've just been there and been the perfect thing to gift to someone. So I thought I would share some of those here with you today. So in the description box, you will find a link to a bundle of these patterns that I've put in my Ravelry favorites. So you can go there to look at them. Here I will try to put information on the screen, including needle sizes and yardage, but also put up photos either up here or cutaways showing you the Ravelry page for the patterns so you can see some of those details yourself. So I am hoping to go through this somewhat quickly just for time because you can go take a look at these yourself as well. You will hear me talk about a few pattern designers repeatedly. And that's because I find in my experience just from knitting patterns or when you go to search on Ravelry for shawls using those different criteria that I just mentioned, several designers are very prolific with these one-skein items. Those include people like Joji Locatelli, Helen Stewart, Ambah O'Brien, and Carmen Heffernan. In fact, Ambah O'Brien has a bundle within her pattern store in Ravelry that is labeled 1 to 2 skein shawls. So have a look there if you want, but I'm going to talk about a couple of those, or at least one or so of those in just a moment. So let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is the one that I reach for over and over again and will not gift it if I can help it. And it is this little shawl here, which is called the Lightweight Hipster. Almost screwed that up. Lightweight Hipster Shawl by Joji Locatelli. So she had another shawl with the same name, but this is the fingering weight version. So you start this at the top and increase out. You see you have garter stitches, and then you have these drop stitches that form this X pattern in between. A couple times through the design, it grows out lengthwise over time into this more or less crescent shape, and is finished with these optional little mini fringe tassels at the end. So I'm going to consult my notes while I show you some things on screen. Sorry for some rustling. On Ravelry, this pattern is listed at a cost of $6 US. It requires 400 yards or 366 meters. It's worked on size US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles. The blocked size comes out to 68 inches by 17¼ inches, is crescent shaped, has chart and written instructions, drop stitches, and lace patterns in between. I will say as a tip, and this is something you might see if you look at other people's projects pages for the shawl, is that when you're going to work these drop stitches, you work them by doing a lot of yarn overs on your needle, and then they're kept on your needle until later on. Do not work those yarn overs tightly, or you will have trouble moving them along your needle, getting them up and over the join between your needle and your cable. So just work them slightly loosely. Just make sure they're not wrenched down when you make those yarn overs, because otherwise you will just maybe be cursing a bit every time you have to slide these along on there. So I tend to wear this one just like this around my neck and just like that. But I find also that these are really easy as gifts because they're very easy to style. You could wear it, so I wear it more like a bandana style, you know, however you like it, just over your shoulders, whatever it might be. And I definitely want to make more of these because I use this one all the time. Partly it's the colors as well, but one skein, that was it. I used just one for this entire little shawl. Okay, up next, pardon me, reaching, is another pattern by Joji, and that is the Venezia shawl. So I gifted my version of this shawl. I didn't knit it intending to gift it, but as soon as I was done, I decided I had somebody in mind that should have this shawl. So now I need one for myself. And I've been thinking about this for some time. I'm just waiting for the right yarn to call to me for this pattern. It is also a $6 pattern. It uses the same yardage and needle size as a lightweight hipster. It is charted, has lace twisted stitches, and it's worked tip to tip at 76.5 inches length finished and blocked by 16¾ inches depth. Now with this one, if you have slightly less yarn, you could still make this pattern because you can weigh your ball at the start of the project, work up to the point in the pattern where it says, okay, when you've reached about half of your ball, do this. And you do a little something and then finish off to the other end. So you can use the entire skein of yarn. It has this really nice, easy pattern in the center, and then it's bordered on the edges by this diamond lace pattern. So I highly recommend this one as well. All right, next up, let's look at a crochet pattern. This is the Vintage Peach Shawl by Carmen Heffernan. Her website and pattern store name is Annie Design Crochet. Most of the patterns that I have used or looked at from Carmen are free on her website. You can, of course, purchase the patterns on Ravelry, and they usually cost about $4 US. So those are the free, ad-free, printed up versions, or you can simply go to the blog version where you have ads and things like that. This pattern used a 4mm hook or G size hook. You need between 383 to 437 yards. It is triangular shaped, it is made with lace, and there is a video tutorial. This is a really easy pattern. Once you get down that lace pattern on a couple of the rows, you don't even need to look at it anymore. You just work until it's big enough or you run out of yarn. If you want to use a contrasting color, then you could do the picot edging in that contrast color. I used a skein that I had from Legacy Fiber Arts, which was the cashmere blend. And then I had a mini leftover from a sock set that I used as the contrasting color for the border. I just gifted this shawl 2 weeks ago. unintentional again, but it just seemed to match the person that was here. And again, it's a perfect layer. They plan to wear it just over their shoulders in the summer with the summer dress. Again, I wore it once and I wore it wrapped around my neck and that was it. So it's gone off to a great home. Right? You can rehome these things. It's okay. All right, up next is another shawl pattern that I have made and gifted, and that is the Cranberry Fizz shawl. And this is a pattern by Helen Stewart. Helen Stewart's shawls or blankets that often include lace include garter stitches or stockinette stitches alternating with eyelet laces. So they're very easy to memorize, very easy to work, and Helen often includes a row by row list and section within her very lengthy patterns. So if you really want something where you can check off row by row, this is a great pattern for you. You don't have to follow that checklist, but they're that easy to follow. So this was part of a ebook during a knit vent during the Advent or winter season. Well, let's call it the December season. Okay. And as a standalone pattern, it costs £6, which is around $8 US today. It uses a US 6 4mm needle and requires between 416 to 437 yards. It is triangular shaped, has eyelet lace, stockinette, and a picot bind off. The other optional feature to this shawl is to add beads. So if you've never done beading in knitting, then this might be a great pattern to try because there are instructions on how to add the beads while you're knitting this project. I decided not to use beads this time because I had a yarn that was called Cranberry, and I'll put a picture of the shawl up here, and it had a lot of silver stellina in it, so I thought it had enough of that fizzy sparkle that I didn't want to add beads on top of that. Again, this is a shawl or shawlette that I wore once, really loved it, but I needed a quick gift for someone, and this just suited them so well, and I knew they would use it more than I did. So I just gave it another cleanup and wrapped it up, and they love it. So I need another one of those as well. So who knew how giftable these little shawls are. All right, my first Ambah O'Brien pattern, probably really the only one I'm going to really show here, is one that's caught my eye. So I have made some of Ambah's shawl patterns previously, but they were larger shawls, that is those requiring 2 or more skeins of yarn. Now, one thing about Ambah O'Brien's patterns is she has a lot of patterns that use mini skeins, something you would get in an Advent set, for example. So that's an example here. If you have 5 20-gram minis, this might be a way to use up those minis as well. Is in a little shawlette. The one I wanted to mention though is made, at least in Ambah's pattern photos that you'll see here on screen, is the Tignola shawl, and it's in a solid color. So this one is a price of $7 US. It is, the pattern comes with instructions for both using a fingering weight yarn or a DK weight yarn. It uses US 5 or 3.75mm needles, requires 380 to 430 yards for the fingering weight version. It is crescent shaped, it is charted, has written instructions and video tutorials as well. It uses German short rows, and of the videos, cover the German short rows and the lace and looped edging as well. As I mentioned before, Ambah has a separate bundle within her pattern store that is called 1 to 2 Skein Shawls. So go have a look there too as well if you're interested. My next pattern is another knit pattern, and this one is free. It's called the Ambah One-Skein Shawl. It requires between 321 to 330 yards. It is worked on US 7 or 4.5mm needles, is triangular shaped, and finishes at 54 inches wide by 19.5 inches deep. So this would be a great pattern. This is by Michelle Miller. To use up one of those skeins that's not quite 100, let's say you used a little bit of yarn from that hank, why would we do that? You know, it happens. It happens. So maybe you don't have quite 100 grams or quite 400 yards, then this might be a great option for you. It's also more detailed lace. So if you want something a little bit more than just eyelets, but you want to do some lace, this isn't a massive shawl. It's small enough that I think it's, you know, something to challenge you if you're not a lace knitter, but you would like to try lace a little bit more than just working. I mean, than simply working eyelet rows, but doing something a little bit with other lace stitches is what I'm looking to say. Okay. Next up on the roundup is the Stormy Sky Shawl. This is a free pattern by Ksenia Nidian, which is Life is Cozy. I made this version here, whoops, using one of those special skeins that I got on vacation. It's Merino Baby Camel Blend. It is started on one edge, on one end, and worked to the other, and it alternates with these garter ridges followed by some drop stitched rows, and then later some kind of, what do you want to call it, fishnet sort of lace patterns here. So it just repeats like that throughout the shawl. So it makes this right angled shawl. And then you can add your tassels to the end. Now my tassels are very little because I used up every single yard of this yarn, and this is all that was left just to make these two tiny tassels. But I love it. It is really fun. This is the smaller version. There is a bigger version as well. Basically, you just keep going until you run out of yarn, or you save yourself some yarn to make tassels, maybe larger tassels than this, or you could do an alternating contrasting yarn as your tassels as well. So this is made on US 9 or 5.5 millimeter needles, and it requires 420 to 550 yards depending on which size that you make. It's lightweight, it's asymmetric, it's dynamic and modern. According to the site, you knit from the corner in shape of a skewed triangle. Makes a great and fast project for that one very special skein of yarn. And I think I mentioned it is free. The Summer Lace Shawl by Michelle Krause. This is one that's caught my eye because it has this nice alternating eyelet pattern with a little bit more of the zigzag lace edge to it. It costs $6 US. It is worked on US 6 4 millimeter needles and requires 460 yards. So that would be something more if you either had a really oversized skein, if it was 400 to 435 yards per 100 grams, or if you had a light fingering weight yarn coming in around 463 or 467 yards per gram. Next up is the Silly Heart Shawl. This is another knit pattern. It is another free pattern. This is by Kelly McClure. And I talked about this, I think, in one of my other episodes. Here is my version that was knit up in the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad set from 2022. So I used the full 100 grams sock yarn plus some of the contrasting mini for the edging here. So let me tell you a little bit about this one. So it uses US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needles, requires 440 to 500 yards. It is on the skill level from rookie, apprentice, virtuoso, or genius. The designers knitted it as apprentice. So think adventurous beginner could do this. It uses knitting, purling, easy lace knitting, and a knit on edge. So that's probably where it's going to get a little bit more, well, doing lace and that kind of thing is a little bit more advanced, but I'd say have a go at it. It makes these really nice, I've done it. I know I have experience knitting, but I think adventurous beginner can do it if you're good at just paying attention. Oh, it has these in and out zigzag eyelet lace patterns that work really well here. Again, that is a free pattern on Ravelry, the Silly Hearts. And you wouldn't have to do that edging in a contrast color. It just depends on how much yarn you used, but you could use anything from your stash of scraps to add on that contrasting border if you like it in another color. All right, let's look at another crochet shawl. So I did start this shawl and frogged it because I was traveling and I kept losing track and messing up. It is a pattern by Tony Lipsy, and it is on Ravelry as $7.50, but there is a free version through the link on her page where you can find it on her website. So it uses a 5.5 millimeter Tunisian crochet hook, which is a size I. It uses between 350 to 360 yards. So this is great, again, for that one ball, even less than a regular skein of yarn. So depending on how you do it, you could stripe it, you could, change it up how you like. It comes with a video tutorial. It's triangle shaped, and it is seamless. It uses eyelets and mesh sort of piece, and it is reversible. So if you are a crocheter or want to take a dive into Tunisian crochet, this might be a great one to do. Tony's videos are very good. She has great tutorials for any kind of crochet stitches, but especially I love her Tunisian crochet videos as well. Next up is the Sutton Shawlette, which is a pattern by Tori Yu. It is $7 on Ravelry. This pattern uses both crochet and knitting. So the center or inner triangle is made of crochet stitches, and then the outer border is knit. So this uses US 4 3.5 millimeter needles and a 3.5 millimeter hook, which is a letter E. It uses between 220 to 400 yards, depending on the size. So as you'll see on screen, the very smallest size, which is one that uses 220 yards, could be used as a head covering, as a scarf, whereas the slightly larger version using the full skein then would work as a nice little neck kerchief or whatever, like I talked about here, the shawlettes. So again, if you are someone who knits and crochets, this would be great. Or if you want to try crochet or want to try knitting, this might be a great way to bring those two skills together. I find Tori's patterns are very well written, very clear. If we go back to Ambah O'Brien, the Aperture Shawl is one that I've had on my wish list for ages. I finally purchased it and I had yarn for it, but I haven't cast it on. I do have the yarn ready to go, and it is in a similar color to this golden one here. In the pattern, they use US 5 or 3.75 millimeter needles. And for the small size, you need 400 yards, the larger size up to 800 yards. The small size comes to a wingspan of 66 inches and a depth of 19.5 inches after blocking. And so it's charted, it has eyelets, it has an I-cord edging to it, and is triangular shaped. I particularly like the look of this shawl. What caught my attention is the simple open airiness to it, but then those thicker sections of the horizontal bars, which I find really interesting. So I have it in a project bag ready to go. Let's see if I can get that cast on. All right, coming near the end, things that have caught my eye recently. I saw this pattern, which is the Pebble Beach Shawl by Helen Stewart. This came to my attention from Nancy Wheeler of Knit Sip Happy. You check out her channel here on YouTube. She had talked about making one of these before in a lace weight, which you can do, and there are instructions in here for making the larger sizes using the same pattern and needles, but just using lace weight yarn instead of fingering weight. And so I really like the look of this. Yet again, it is, this is stockinette with garter and eyelets. So I think quite an easy pattern to follow, very straightforward. It uses US 6 or 4 millimeter needles and requires between 437 to 800 yards, depending on if you're making the small, medium, or large sizes. So this picture here, I think, is a great one that shows the 3 different sizes, each one done in a different color. So I'm particularly looking at the small size, which is the one that was done in yellow in the sample above. So this one runs 6 pounds, which is about $8 US currently. It is part of an ebook which contains 6 patterns that you could buy as well, or you can buy this as a standalone pattern. Another, very quickly to show up here again, is the Sweet Chestnut. It's another crochet triangular shawl pattern from Carmen Heffernan on Any Design Crochet. Again, it's about $4 US to purchase the print pattern, or it's free on the Any Design Crochet website. Although it is striped with different colors, you could do this with one single skein. I did one here, also gifted, that's right, using Farmer's Daughter Fiber Sock Squad set from 2022. I just alternated with the contrasting mini within the shawl and used it for the tassels as well. So this one uses a 4mm hook or G size, and depending on the size you make, between 437 to 547 yards. So you could always omit the tassels, but I find sometimes they really help the shawls to lay nicely, but they're definitely not a requirement. We're down to the last 2 that I'm going to mention, although more are in the Ravelry page. There is another Joji Locatelli pattern that came out in October of last year in 2024. I'm not sure how you pronounce this one, so I'm just going to put it up here on the screen. Hallgrimskirkja, maybe it's that. Maybe I just lied to you, but it's made on US 6 needles, which are 4mm and requires 400 yards. I really like, again, the open airiness, but the interesting geometric pattern that the lace panel sections make here as well. It's not a typical pattern I think you see for lace shawls. It finishes at 59¼ inches long and 17¼ inches deep. It is $7 US on Ravelry. Another interesting one I find that is geometrically interesting with the lace is this one here by Ambah O'Brien, which is called Miso. So this one came out in April 2016, but I only just saw this, or maybe I don't remember seeing it before. It is $7 US. It is made on US 5 or 3.75mm needles, and requires between 385 or 840 yards in 2 sizes, small or large. The Miso shawl was designed to be a wardrobe staple, an easy wear piece that can be knit in a go with everything color. Modern geometric lace have this knit feeling fresh, while the shallow triangle shape is so easy to wear. So there's 2 different versions, single or double skein. And now the last one I'm going to talk about here, and I mean it this time, is the one that is on near the top of my queue right now to cast on, and that is the Antrim Shawlette by Brenda Brayfield. So I purchased the Antrim shawl pattern, but it came with a separate pattern for the shawlette version. In fact, I think there were 4 files that came with this pattern. It is made on US 5 and US 6 needles, which are 3.75 and 4mm respectively. Requires 430 yards for the smallest size, up to 790 yards for the largest size. It's asymmetrical triangular shawl. It's knit sideways from one tip to the opposite edge. The texture body starts with relaxing garter stitch, enhanced with slip stitch stripes, and features an eye-catching combination of 2 colors, slip stitch and delicate lace, and is finished with an I-cord bind off. So this is a nice way to use 2 contrasting colors as the shawlette. You could use 2 leftovers from previous projects. I think the smallest amount you need is just under 200 yards. I think about 197 yards. And then you need over 200 yards for the other color. So I like the way that it blends the one color into the next by doing that slip stitch mosaic knitting in the middle. So hopefully that will come on as well. But one of the fun bonuses that comes with this pattern is that you get the pattern for the Antrim cuff. So the knitted cuff with buttons to put around the shawl to hold it in place comes with the pattern as well. So that's it, at least as far as I know, for my current patterns. I'm telling you, we could go on and on and on, but there are lots of them out there. There were hundreds that were also free, either knit or crochet. So if you're looking for other ones, if you want to go down that rabbit hole of looking for One-Skein Shawls, there are a lot of options out there on Ravelry, and a lot of them are free. So thank you so much for taking the time to go over this pattern roundup. And until I see you next time in my regular episode, take care.